I was exhausted. I was running a business, doing everything for everyone. And then the next morning I'd wake up and go, "You're nothing, Corey." In the middle of my process, I realized I was living out my mom's pattern of putting others before her. When I did Hoffman as a student, they help you work through your own shame message. Mine that I identified was, I'm not enough as I am. I've had numerous moments now where with my son, I've felt that same rage. And I was like, holy shit, like this is what this is what he felt. It's my own fear of deficiency as a parent. One thing about Charisse that I've come to appreciate, I don't know that I understood the term unconditional love until actually being with her. I feel like when you have a relationship like that, where you can give that to each other, man, that's when you just have this beautiful symbiotic relationship. I lost my brother, which was the hardest death experience I had. He had diabetic reaction. I never welcomed it. I fought it, I just like buried it. I realized how much anger was in me towards my brother for not taking better care of his diabetes. I just welcomed it finally, and it took me 3 years to do that. I love you, and I forgive you, and I wish that you could have received unconditional love to the degree that you wouldn't have fought your condition. I just hope wherever he is that he knows he was loved.
Greater Good Radio, connect, learn, heal, and grow, is brought to you by Brain Gain Hawaii, a boutique executive recruiting, career development, and coaching firm. Learn more at braingainhi.com. Welcome to Greater Good Radio. Today we're here with my friend Corey Campbell, who is the CEO and founder of Akamai Training and Consulting. Also a Hoffman Process facilitator, you'd call it?
Teacher and coach.
Teacher? Okay. Expert. Huh? Can I say expert?
Sure, although I wouldn't claim that from myself, but
Okay. So if you took out those pieces of like your title,
yeah.
like how would you introduce yourself?
It's a great question. I would say I'm a passionate, energetic seeker of knowledge and understanding of how people operate.
And that's expressed into the world by what?
I think it gets expressed through my work, but I think I've always just sort of inherently wanted to understand why people operate the way they do. And I think it's always in my life just led me on this journey. I did psychology in college, and I came from a family of a teacher mother and an emergency room doctor father, and psychology was not smiled upon when I was going through college. They were like, why are you doing this? How are you going to? But I was just drawn to, I got most excited about studies about why people do what they do. And I think then it manifests in me, and I'm just sort of always looking at people and analyzing why they operate the way they do. And that turns into my work, how leadership teams, how do people engage with each other, and how do we make it more productive and meaningful?
So have you always been thinking about that, or was it a specific time you're like, oh, I want to study this area?
I think I was always thinking about, when I was a kid, I used to love watching insects. I could watch ants for hours, and my family would always be like, what is he doing out there? We would go to Louisiana, where my parents are from, once a year, and they had these big red ant hills. And I love watching why they do what they do. And I think, initially I was thinking maybe I should do entomology as a career. And I think as I got older, I didn't want to do that as a career, but I think what it transferred into is me just applying that to people. Sociology experiments were always really fascinating to me, studying what people do. I remember in college we had to do this experiment where I wanted to see if I needed a jump. Could we encourage who helped us based on what we were or how we looked, or all this? So little things like that always just piqued my interest.
And then how did the experiment finish out?
I don't think we had any conclusions, although we did find, and it's something I think about to this day, presentation is important. If you look professional, I forget the exact numbers, but I remember we saw an increase in the likelihood that people would help us versus just looking, super casual, which just is interesting,
So as you're doing that, who were the subjects? Was it you and your friends, or?
Yeah, it was a group of psychology classmates. And
were they all good looking? Because you're kind of good looking. You know what I mean? You're right. What if they were not good looking?
That was a part of our study. I remember. I don't want to define anyone as good looking or not good looking, but it was certain. But racially, we looked at racially. Part of my history too. I chased a basketball dream. So briefly, I grew up in Oregon, and then my family moved to Virginia when I was 13. And when I got there, I had played soccer my whole life. Got into basketball. I ended up going for an AAU, which is an amateur athletic union group, and coached by 2 black guys. And I remember I got there in Oregon, where I lived, was not that racially diverse. I get to Virginia and is a whole different thing. And I fell in love with basketball, but what ended up happening is I was chasing this dream. I left my family and I went from like an all academic white school to an all black inner city school. It was a top 10 school in the nation. And I think I got to see firsthand like how different this world is. In particular, even just walking around with fellow black players, convenience store, for example, people would stare at them, not even give me a second look. And then I go to college after that. And I think I was always curious about racially, what can we determine about how people's perceptions work based on that?
Wait, so the AAU school was a college, or?
That's like an extra. So, here we don't have it, but in Virginia, you would play for your high school or whatnot, but most.
Like a junior college?
No, it's just like an additional league that happened outside of school. If you look at like players today, most of them play for AAU teams. And so AAU teams run their own tournaments. And that's where like a lot of players, not necessarily for their school, that's where they get notoriety, is in an AAU tournament. And so that became more my life. I mean, those became all my boys, was my AAU teammates, more so than like the school I was at.
Okay, so you had a basketball dream,
Yeah.
and you are how tall?
Yeah, that's a great question. 5'8" on a good day. Yeah. I mean, ultimately,
How does that work?
Yeah, it gets tricky. I think I did about as good as I could have done for my stature. So the quick story about how I got to St. Patrick High School, we had a guy go straight from high school to the NBA, Al Harrington. When I moved there, I was playing behind a guy named Shaheen Holloway. He was the #1 rated.
Al Harrington from Hawaii.
No,
family?
he's from New Jersey, actually. He ended up
okay.
playing for the Hawks for like 18 years. But anyway, long story short is I went to Syracuse basketball camp. My AAU coach went to Syracuse. So every year he would take 2 or 3 of us up to this camp. This coach comes in, visiting coach, to do some drills. In camp, I volunteered to do these drills. And he ends up saying, look, I'll send you a pair of shoes for doing these drills for me. That age, I was like, this is amazing, a free pair of shoes. So I get home, I tell my AAU coach, his name's OJ. I was like, OJ, like this guy's amazing. Like he's gonna send me a pair of shoes. And my AAU coach was like hyper focused on all this stuff. He's like, you're gonna go play at St. Pat's. And I was like, yeah, that's funny, OJ. Like, right. And he goes, no, you're gonna go play St. Pat's. And he ends up contacting the coach on my behalf, more or less says, hey, can I bring Corey up? Can he scrimmage with this team? And I was excited, but I was like, there's 0 chance I make it at this school. I mean, true story, Evan, I probably have one of the best days I've ever had just playing basketball. That one day I went up there, coach is like, look, you want to come up here? We got a position for you. Like, we'll find a place for you to live. I ended up living in the attic of this assistant coach. My parents were, I'll say my mom was heavily against it. When we went up to visit, the assistant coach was like, he can live with me. And don't worry, my mom still tells the story, so I wouldn't have remembered it. He says, don't worry, I have grass in the front of my house in the back, and I will make sure that Corey never walks around alone around her. He lived in Irvington. That was all my mom needed to hear to go, you should not be moving here. My dad was amazing and was like, we got to support his dream. So I left.
You're the only child?
No, I had 2 older brothers. So by this stage, I mean, my oldest brother was in college, and my middle brother, he went to a military school, so he was out of the house too. So even more so, I was kind of amazed. In reflection now, as a young parent, I'm like, man, what they allowed me to do is pretty crazy.
How old were you?
I was a junior, so what is that, about 16?
16,
17.
17.
So I used to drive myself from Virginia to New Jersey about 6 hours, and and then I'd stay there for 4 or 5 months at a time, come home for the holidays, and yeah, I mean, it highly influenced, I think, how I view this world today in various ways.
So in that time period, what was the most influential experience you had, or like moment?
When I first arrived at that school, I remember I was sitting in class, and there was a heavy set teacher, and I remember kids were getting up, walking around the class, and he would say, like, sit down, and they'd be like, shut up, fat boy. And I was like, where am I and what's happening? I'd come from more or less an academic school. I'd left my family actually as a freshman to go. So there's a little background of this, I guess. My AAU coach started coaching at a school called St. Anne's Belfield. It was about 45 minutes away from my parents. I ended up going there my freshman year and boarding. They had a boarding school. And so I'd been away for like 2 years at this academic white school primarily, playing basketball for OJ, who got it. And anyway, then I go to St. Pat's, and I was just like, what is happening here? Like, this is just so different from my experience of what school was.
Were you scared?
I was scared.
Yeah.
I was questioning, should I be there? I remember I had a really kind of like hairy scenario where these two guys, like in the first couple of days, felt like they were about to kick my ass. And I remember one of the basketball players who I'd balled with that summer, just in that one day, walked by and he was like, yo, he balls. And they were like, oh, all right. And I was like, it was almost like, okay, he's cool. And I was like, whoa, thank goodness, you know? And I mean, I think, Evan, like for the first few weeks, I was like, I should go home. This is stupid. This is silly. I'm not good enough to play here. And then, you know, something happened where I pushed my limits genetically as far as I could. And I mean, I was pretty good for my height and stature and stuff. And I remember feeling like I can actually play with these guys. And in particular, I went my junior year knowing I would play behind Shaheen all the way for a year. I was like, I'm not going to get any playing time. But then going into my senior year, this will be amazing. And that was my outlook. So I was like, I'm going to stay here. And I think my dad was big in this. I think he told me you got to stay like 6 weeks. Like you push for this. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if he didn't say that to me if I would have tried to come home. But I stayed. And I think by that time I was good, you know. My mom still jokes. She's like, when we would come and visit you later, we couldn't even understand what you were saying. It was like a culture shift without me being cognitively aware of it. I was
Had to fit in.
adapting. Yeah. And to this day, I'm so grateful for having, in my opinion, what I would describe as the experience of being like racially judged for being white. In fact, there's a funny story is I played with a guy named Corey White who was 6'11". So my whole career at St. Pat's, I was known as White Corey. White Corey, Corey White. It was just random. So, I mean, everywhere we went, it was like, who's this white boy? Why is this white boy on the court with these guys? And I felt that. And there were moments where I let it get in my head. You know, I often think if I'd done some mental work like you and I talk about a lot, Evan, then I would have been in a better scenario to handle it. I think I always struggled with like imposter syndrome. Why am I with these guys?
Did you ever get over it?
No, I wouldn't say so. And in particular, my senior year. So I had this amazing summer season after my junior year. There was a coach named Chris Chavanis who was really supportive of me, and I played great. Going into my senior year, our head coach named Kevin Boyle, he now coaches at one of the dominant, not at St. Pat's anymore, but one of the dominant schools in the nation. I don't think he ever believed in me, as was my interpretation. And going into my senior year, we had 2 really good guys transfer in. That school always had people transferring in. I think I lost my confidence relatively early. I never felt like Coach Boyle saw me as a player. I think, ironically, he was the one who told me to come up, you know, but then I think I lost my confidence. And I played 12 or 14 minutes a game as a senior, but it was never the experience that I had dreamed of, which was hard because in that summer season before, I played really well. I was like, I had this moment of like, I can compete at this level with these players. And then I think it fell off in that next year.
If you could go back now and coach yourself as you now, like what would you do to coach yourself?
You know, this whole idea of where focus goes, energy flows, I would really hone in on that. I would give myself mantras. Like I have a daily mantra now to set myself up for like success. And what I realize is that the limiting self-talk is always creeping in at all times. And so I feel like I now have ways to battle that and like put it in its place. I mean, Hoffman does a great job of that. We label it something called your dark side voice, darkness of unconscious. And that work really helped me. That's why I was drawn to that as a teacher, as I got so much as a student. But I would have taken my young self and done some mindset training. Trevor Moawad was a sports psychologist who worked at the University of Alabama. And I just learned the story reading about it. And what they said is he went in there and what he realized is before we can even get to positively promoting these guys to like be better players, we need to stop the thought like they would have of like out there, like I'm going to drop the ball as soon as the ball's coming towards them. So he just started this whole campaign of like avoiding the negative thoughts. And I was like, see, little things like that, I was completely unaware of how to train my mind. And I think at that day, we trained our bodies so well, there was no real mind training. And now I think that should be equal, if not more, on the mind training than the body training.
Is it voice in your head or where's the voice?
Voices in my head, the voices.
Voices, then you're saying, right? Coming from different parts or what?
I receive it as one voice. I'm going to share the Hoffman view on this, which is
okay, cool.
Become my view,
Yep.
Which is it's the voice of my early childhood. It's an operating system that I took on.
Whose voice?
It's my voice.
Your voice.
Yeah, and so it's almost like
so it's a child's voice.
No. It's an adult voice. But it's the
Oh, okay.
it's the operating system that I took on early that said be small, play safe, all these things. And so then this is the Hoffman methodology too, is as you grow up, that voice still thinks it's doing the right thing by like keeping you tiny, be aware of all the dangers. And I think that voice for me like just continues. It's quite strong at all times, and it becomes very mean. If I make a mistake, it's like you're stupid and you're an idiot. So as I got older, it takes on a layer of judgment. But I believe this. It's like it's a voice that's trying to protect me. It's just not needed anymore and still there.
How old would you say it is?
Well, again, I'm influenced by Hoffman's methodology, which is saying precognitive ability. This voice is already coming on, and it's based around this concept of shame,
So precognitive meaning like before 2 years old?
Yeah, even earlier, like almost like
It would be a voice before 2 years old then.
Yeah, I mean, the voice though comes out as an adult voice for me. Like it's like my voice talking to me today. But what my understanding of it is that it's still like from this early, like it's part of my bio makeup, like it's so early on in me of like, this is how you can be safe. Like, who do you need to be in this world to receive love, to get what you need? I mean, this is a Bob Hoffman concept called negative love syndrome, that we're born in this world, we have all these needs. Our parents can't provide them in the way we need them at all times. So a baby in that infancy precognition doesn't say, oh, my parents are busy, they have a headache. It says,
I'm
this
bad.
is about me. Yeah, I'm bad.
Something's wrong with me and I need to
And if I can
fix this.
Yeah, so if I can change it, I can be okay. And so that belief system is we then adopt patterns of behavior from our parents early, and that becomes this, in their terminology, this dark side voice is the voice of your patterns. Like, who do I need to be? And then as we get older, we start to rebel against that voice or whatnot, but it's still like, it's in rebellion to who we thought we needed to be, not necessarily the authentic voice. And so back to the original question, I think I'd try to get my younger self to be connected to just my own ability, my own belief system, not based on early belief systems,
Interject?
No.
So a perpetrator interject is, let's say we're a child, right? And we're getting scoldings or something, we feel under attack. For the most part, it's not safe. And the power dynamic is we're at the lesser side of the power dynamic. Power dynamic, somebody else's power. So then what happens is we will take that person's energy into ourselves and use it in order to try to stop what's happening outside. So let's say I'm getting yelled at by my father. I'll take my father's voice inside of me and start yelling at myself to make me stop doing whatever I'm doing to make them upset. And then that becomes the perpetrator interject, is kind of the term.
It's like, so his voice lives on in you.
Yeah, so that's why when I was asking you about whose voice is it, you know what I mean? Because what happens is if you actually pay attention to it, you know how you can hear your dad's voice in a crowded room or your mom's voice or people, you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like, well, who's talking? You know what I mean?
Well, that's deep. And I think you're right. I think ultimately it is the belief systems oftentimes of my mom and dad. It comes out as my voice, but like where this connects.
So it sounds like you. Like
it sounds like me.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like mine is like, Corey, you effing moron.
But the
like
tone, the pitch, the intonation, the prosody, all of that stuff sounds like you?
It does actually sound like me. I mean, the way that
Does your dad sound like you?
No. I don't think so. But where I'm connecting with what you're saying is like my dad would make us eat everything on our plate, and that was traumatic for me at times. And then now if I'm looking at a plate of food, the voice, it is my voice though. It's interesting, but it comes in
So
and says,
how do
Corey,
you not
better eat
overeat?
that. How do I not?
Yeah.
Wait.
How do you not overeat?
Oh, I
Because
think I
you're in
do.
good shape.
Well,
like
I
I've
got
had
a
that
little
before
cushion.
too, which is don't leave food on there. And I eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think I have better. I am a systems guy. Like I have systems for everything. I mean, I don't eat breakfast in part because if I did, I'd be heavy. Like, I mean, I like food and I eat big lunches and dinners. So I cut out breakfast primarily for that reason, like a system to create management of it. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's my own voice, but it's my dad's belief system of like, you better eat that.
So Hoffman, they go into emotions much or?
It's primarily an emotion-based program, like helping people understand emotions.
Like what would be like for a lay person, how would you explain it?
The whole process or just the part on emotions?
No, the whole thing. Like what
I would say...
What is Hoffman? Because you spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, it's helping you understand childhood conditioning, the stories you told yourself as a child about who you needed to be in this world, and then how that manifests for you as an adult through patterns of behavior, ways of thinking, ways of acting that no longer are benefiting you, but feel like identity. And so in a lay way, what I typically, when people are like, so what is it actually about? I'm like, have you ever woke up and just felt like, man, I should feel really happy or I should feel fulfilled? And if you don't, it's a way to go assess, why am I not like, why can't I experience like the joy that I should have from all the things that I've done? I find a lot of people are like, I'm not experiencing that. What Hoffman helps you pull back is like, what part of that is like, did you go seek these goals because you thought that's who you needed to be? And maybe it doesn't provide long-term happiness, but it was a driver, but it's no longer. And so that's what the process does, is unveils, we would probably say there's your authentic self, unrelated to the story you told yourself as a child that you needed to be.
So you're looking for strategies that no longer serve you and the causes of them.
Yeah.
Right?
And we would turn that word from strategy to patterns, because it's heavily focused on this idea of what's the patterns. Like, a pattern is a strategy. So yeah, I guess, Evan,
so what would be included in a pattern that's not in a strategy? So when I'm saying strategy, it's like a way to accomplish something. So strategy would, like, example would be, let's say I am 2 years old. I'm getting yelled at and I can't flee, or I can't get out of there because I'm stuck. I can't fight because it's an adult.
Okay.
So then my strategy then is or an unconscious strategy is to dissociate.
Yeah.
Right? So then my mind and consciousness kind of leaves. I'm zoning out and so on, which helps me because it helps me to not be overwhelmed with emotions that are unpleasant in my system. But then now I go to school. And then something happens in the classroom in school. It's third grade and I cannot run. I can't fight the teacher. So I dissociate. And then now what happens is the teacher says, hey, you're not paying attention? What did I just say? Oh, you can't focus? Oh, people start shaming you, start have that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? So in the earlier years, that strategy is helpful and it's an adaptation. But then as you move into the next stage of, the social construct, it now becomes a liability.
Okay, actually, that'd
be a strategy.
You're right on exactly what it's about. Then it's about strategies for survival. Maybe is what maybe then we would describe as pattern. Yeah, that's actually a really good description of, I think, what. Because
when I think of strategies, it's like certain strategies work and some don't. And what happens is there's a lot of them that we do just unconsciously, or I do unconsciously, that absolutely do not work, but I just keep doing it because it's unconscious and that's how it goes. Initially it's a thought, then it becomes a belief, and then it becomes a full-on blown algorithm, and then it becomes automatic.
So that's okay, Evan. That's where I think I was hung up on the word strategy. Is there's some level of awareness to me in a strategy, or I think I had that in my head, is like, whereas what you just said there, though, it becomes unconscious. Like, and I think that's where
it's unconscious. It's the same way as a computer program runs. Totally. So you have a bug in the system, and then, or they call it a ghost in the code, right? Which is like, where even is this? But it's affecting kind of how the thing runs, and you either need to debug it, you need to update it, you need to do things in order to make it go right.
Jay Shetty, I listen to stuff every so often, and
the monk. He's like a monk.
Oh, he is like a monk. Right? He was a monk even, right?
For like a short period.
Yeah, so he told this really cool story. He quotes this as a story he heard about how as we raise as kids, we build a house, and it's a house of bricks. And this house has holes in it, and some bricks are crumbled and broken and all this stuff. And then, another person has their own house, and they build it, and it's got holes in it. And so when a relationship comes together, and the story he goes is, if I'm trying to get you in a relationship to move into my broken house, it's not going to work very well. Or if you're, unconsciously trying to get me to move into your broken house, what needs to happen is for a great relationship, is we both need to take the best bricks of our homes and then build them together into it. And I was like, oh, that's so true, right?
It's ideal. That's like we should be eating from the salad bar and so on.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? It's ideal.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
It's ideal. But I liked it for this idea that, my house is broken. Like, it's got all kinds of challenges and holes, and I'm actually unaware, I think, of most of them, or I was unaware of most of them. The reason that I love, call it Hoffman, call it any program where you go and spend 7 days or, whatever duration on yourself, is to bring awareness to like, what are these strategies, the unconscious strategies I have that no longer serve me, that actually I'm operating off of every day. I was completely unaware.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll give you a great story about my Hoffman experience. So Hoffman is built on the mother, father, and surrogate parent, like what you learn from him. I went to Hoffman sort of, my dad was an angry guy, as I recall, and I like the example with eating, and I thought my patterns were from my dad. But what I found in the middle of Hoffman, one of my epiphanies was the reason I went to Hoffman is I was exhausted. I was running a business, doing everything for everyone, feeling like I get to the end of the day and feeling like, oh, this is great. I was able to like help people in this way. And then the next morning I'd wake up and go, you're nothing, Corey. Like, what are you doing today? And so in the middle of my process, I realized I was living out my mom's pattern of putting others before her, people pleasing, as I would call it for myself. The other pattern I identified was chameleon, like I'll be whatever you need me to be.
So more like fawning or what? Fawning would be like,
I think so.
Kind of a people pleasing, but you're typically behind somebody that you're attached to.
Yeah, the only energy
versus like a full collapse,
Yeah, I think the energy difference for me is I didn't fawn necessarily, but it was kind of more like, if I can help you, I feel good. I have value. So that's where the people pleasing resonated for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to like please people in a sense with authenticity. Like I really want to help
So
you.
this is typically a strategy to try to calm down shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Shame, which is I'm bad, something's wrong with me, I'm defective, someone's morally judging me, or I'm morally judging myself.
Yeah, and when I did Hoffman as a student, they help you work through your own shame message. Mine that I identified was I'm not enough as I am. And I think this came back from being the youngest of two brothers, like, again, unconsciously, but bringing consciousness to it, thinking that I got to be the one that makes this whole family vibe together. Like I remember unconsciously kind of, or I can go back and assess, I think that was what I thought my role was. I became more comedic and funny because there was tension between my middle brother and my father always. And I think my way of doing this. So to connect that story back, Evan, so
that would be a strategy when I'm talking about it. Yeah.
It's perfectly named. Yeah. Okay. So I totally get where you're going. And I think it's strategies. And so for my mom's, in the middle of it, I realized this is actually like the worst strategy that's holding me back is I am only good if I am pleasing others. And that was just an epiphany for me. I'm like, this is why I run myself into exhaustion. I can't say no, but I would sell myself on not saying no, even in a business perspective, when I didn't have time, can you do something? Can you help us? Yeah, I'll find a way. And then I just burned myself into the ground, and it was just a poor strategy for happiness. And I'll battle that pattern the rest of my life.
Maybe not.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, maybe not. Because when I think about pattern, I'm looking at like the individual components of like, if this, then that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So what would happen is something would be a stimulus in your system, your nervous system, right? And in our nervous system, we have basically nervous systems checking out for danger, right?
Okay.
Boom, danger of some sort pops in. And then what emotion am I feeling? So feeling might be fear. If it ends up being shame, like something's wrong with me, I'm bad, then the story comes right after that, right? Yeah. So the story comes, which is like, get your shit together. What is it? What is the story? Like
you're a moron and fix your shit up.
Get it together and so on. So then the unconscious reaction after that becomes, I'm going to hide myself and I will put you in front of me in order to not feel the shame, right? Yep. And I do this out of fear of, that reaction is out of fear of what? Out of the fear that if you don't accept me, then I'm going to feel more shame.
Right.
Right? Where what I really need at the core level is what?
I would describe it as unconditional love.
Unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is the pattern, right? Some stimulus happens, boom, instantly I'm feeling shame, fear, whatever it may be, story runs, and then reaction comes right after that. So it goes, my dad comes in upset. I'm now feeling scared. I feel shame. I feel like running the hell out of here, but I can't just run out of here. So start telling myself, okay, I'm going to make everything good because I'm funny and I can smooth this thing out. I'm going to do this thing. So then my reaction then becomes, okay, let me see what I can do to make others feel okay and happy and ease them out.
Yes.
Because of my fear that if I don't, I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to feel shame. I'm going to be abandoned maybe. And then because what I really need at the core level is I need unconditional love.
Yeah.
And that's a pattern. And then I would go, the earliest time I remember this is when? Earliest time.
it's like built into my earliest memories in a sense.
So as early as you can remember,
Yeah.
right? So as early as I can remember, right? It comes in that way, and then that's the pattern. The strategy is the reactivity and so on, right? That's to me. I don't know. I don't know how it's. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
That's right.
Right. So when you look at it in that way, this was a strategy put into place that made sense. You have to stay alive, and it's really to avoid feeling the emotions of fear and shame and maybe abandonment of some sort, which is typically a thought, a judgment, and some fear and so on, right?
Totally. Separation, disconnection, like I would label that feeling of like, I need people.
So the louder, what happens is the louder the emotion starts to run, or the fear of that emotion to running, then the more intense the voice has to be, because it has to get your freaking attention to get away from that, right? I have to have one as loud as the other or louder so that it can kind of drown it out to an extent.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the struggle and the pain and so on comes from that. Does that make right?
Yeah.
So it becomes, at that point, when I said maybe, right? And that's kind of the thing when I was listening to Hoffman, I was like, interesting. You identified the piece, but it's like, I'm going to live with this. Oh, no, not necessarily. Because what happens is, let's give you this situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So young Corey, dad comes in, he's having his issues. Initially feels scared and so on. You run that same story through. You start to people please and so on. And you do that whole thing. And then somebody, it's an adult figure that you care. Let's say your mom at that point goes, you know what? Just pulls you away.
Okay.
And she sits there with you and says, Corey, hey, you know what? Dad's got some issues going on right now. This has nothing absolutely to do with you. How are you doing with it? And you go, I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. She goes, that makes sense. I would be scared too.
Right.
Mom, I don't know what to do about this, Dad. That's Dad. That has nothing to do with you. Has absolutely nothing to do. You get, Mom, you start crying, and she just sits there. She doesn't try to fix you. She doesn't do anything. She just, Corey, I just want you to know that no matter what Dad does and stuff in this situation, you don't have to do anything. I just love you.
Yeah, that'd be a powerful message.
You still have the same pattern after that? Is anything stuck after that?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? That's, and he tries to come again. She blocks him out. She doesn't let him do that. She pulls you away every time you feel fully like you expressed yourself authentically how you wanted to, with no fighting of any emotion whatsoever, and you got it all out and cleared. Do you have anything stuck?
I hear you, but I think yes, because it's still my father. With my father, I'm still stuck. You know, like that's healing to me, and I'm like, okay, I hear Mom, but
the place it gets stuck is when you can't express it properly. You don't have the support needed at that time, so it doesn't get stuck. You know what I'm saying? It's not stuck in time, because that's the piece, right? When you if you really sit with it and you go, okay, here's this voice coming through, you can almost gauge an age. Right. And if you talk to it actually and ask it, it'll show you an age.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what happens is it's the same exact way as when your iPhone goes spools, and then everything is spooling. You're like, what the hell? And then it's like, oh, iOS update needed. You iOS update it, stuff starts to work again, or so on. But let's say you never iOS update it.
Right. That's ultimately what's
what
happening.
is that app stuck in?
Yeah.
It's stuck in that time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing, right? So when that can get cleared out and more or less resolved, then everything from there gets resolved.
Can I offer a slightly different position on it?
Go.
It would be that so that was amazing with Mom. Like, that was incredibly healing, and she really helped me process and deal with. But I think there's a chance that, but still, as I see my father, his love for me doesn't feel this way. And so the angle that I see it now as, expression is huge in Hoffman. It's like, you got to express this out, what's held in you. And so we do a lot of forms of like somatic expression. Mm-hmm. And I think that was an epiphany for me too.
There
like, you know, it's like the Michael Singer Untethered Soul, like, where's the energy blockage? So while Mom cleared a lot of that in that scenario, right? My sense is I still would have this blockage with Dad, but I don't feel that from Dad. So I would need to work through that.
Would you have it with him if that's how the response was and your mom was regulated and so on all the time?
I think so, but I'm also looking at this way, Evan. It's like two primary sources of information are coming into me. One of them gives me this great method for handling, expressing, releasing, but one of them doesn't. I don't, my sense is I would have this imbalance. I think you're right. I'd have a much healthier system because I'm like, wow, mom, I get that. Because I kind of had this with my parents. Like I kind of felt like mom did try to do that. Like mom was very loving. Dad was not, for the most part. And so I think I felt this, I couldn't trust
So
one completely.
when you felt the need to like be the one to hold the family and stuff together and so on, who did you talk to about that?
That was more just, I think my actions manifested in a way. So primarily my middle brother, I think there was a lot of tension around him with my dad. They butted heads. So I think it came out as just me trying to make the whole unit work. It wasn't so much talking about it. It was more like,
Or that feeling when you had inside your head and so on,
Yeah.
like I'm not good enough and all this kind of stuff, right? Like when that came up and you felt flooded with emotion, who did you go and speak to about it?
I don't think I consciously was aware of that as a kid.
So nobody.
Right. Yeah.
So
I don't think
so
I had.
you as a father now of two, almost two, one.
Yeah.
one
One.
and a half.
Yeah. One on the way. Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is out, you have two, right?
Right. Right.
But
Yeah. Hopefully.
your child is now 5, 6 years old or whatever. They're going through some stuff that they're experiencing and they don't come and talk to you. What would be the reason, just logically, that they don't come and talk to you?
I think one, there could not trust. The other one, I think, is just an unawareness of what they.
No, they're
should.
aware that they're struggling.
Oh,
That's
okay.
some
Then I
stuff, yeah.
think it's a breakdown of trust.
It's not safe, right?
Yeah, in some way. Right.
Which at that point, when you think about it, it's like you have a child growing up feeling like, I am not safe and I am not safe to tell my caregivers.
Right.
That becomes isolated and lonely.
Yeah.
And then the strategies come in. Just don't even freaking do anything because the last thing you want is to get it again.
Right.
Right. And then that is the piece
right.
that kind of comes through. So the relationship with that, though, is that the part that is doing that of you is actually has a good intention. And the intention is help you.
Yeah.
That strategy may not work so hot anymore.
Right.
It's kind of not help, but it doesn't know because it's still 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it thinks it's talking to a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we actually see that part all the same. Yeah. Like the reason I think I'm taking the line on like two different, like I see this a lot in like we read a lot, like 60 pages on each person before. When
60?
Yeah, about 60. It's like ton of questions of people just diving into their childhood, all
That's
these
a
things.
lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where a person has like, and it's not always gender based, right?
No.
Loving mother, tough father, or loving father, tough mother. And I think this almost like this dichotomy actually makes it more confusing. It's like, wow, I got so much love here, but it wasn't here. And so what is, again, I always come back to like, what story does a child make up about who they need to be in that scenario? And like, yeah, maybe it's like, wow, this is great with mom. I can release, I can be me. But then you start to, I'll just own mine. I start to build this mask around dad, so.
Yeah.
And that's where I mean, my belief is that's where you need the work later as an adult. But I loved your point earlier, Evan, of like I ask myself a lot, how old am I right now in this moment? And like sometimes I'll be like, just emotionally, if I feel myself like jarring or whatever, and sometimes I can be like, I'm like 6 years old right now. Like what happened? And then I can track it. What happened for me recently that put me in this? And I'm like, oh, I experienced this person doing this, and where did that bring me to as a child? Oh, this is familiar to me. So I think in some way, I'm always asking myself now, like I often tell people.
You ever talk to the child that's 6 years old that is activated by that?
I do. Yeah. That's one of my biggest outcomes from the self-work I've done now is I have a relationship with little Corey. And I do. I talk with him like almost daily in some way. What do you need? How can adult me like take care of you and make you feel whole? Like how can I give you the love that you need so that you don't have to go seek it elsewhere? It was an epiphany for me to think I can just love myself. You mentioned this earlier, Evan, but like, how do we get away from doing? Like, my whole life was like, what do I got to do? The do have be instead of the be do have. Like, my whole life was built around do have be. What do I got to do so that I can have your respect and I can be loved, happy, all this stuff. And those first time leaving that work, and I think it's a daily journey for me now to like really process, like, how can I just come from a place of being and let that inform what I do, and then have integrity at the end of the day.
It's so interesting on the patterns, because as I've been doing kind of I've gone on a lot of my own self-work, and even most recently I'm looking at, wow, this is some interesting, and these were, I would say, patterns in my life, is that my dad and mom, but more my dad, would say, we're not into like emotions, we're not gonna ever be mushy and tell you I love you and stuff like that.
He would say this to you?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
mantra. Yeah,
Yeah,
me and
okay.
my family, like, we're not gonna tell you we're proud of you. We're not gonna tell you any of that stuff, because
Wow,
why don't you be
okay.
a big head? And then, but
Okay.
we'll always be there for you, because actions speak louder than words. So, in our family, it's always been that accomplishments mean something, right? Show me what you do. Which, if you look, I don't know so much about myself, but if you look at my sister and my brother, their accomplishments are really, really like exceptional.
Okay.
Right? But then it's like, well, what does bring us together? You know what I mean? And I was thinking about this because I would find myself in conflict, and I said, sometimes I actually enjoy conflict. And I realized that, you know what, the thing that actually would be connecting between me and my father was a conflict. A conflict would pop up. He was now engaged. We would now
Wow.
be kind of doing this thing together. We could be angry at the same kind of or each whatever, but he'd be. It always would come up like, well, you always have these conflicts. And it's like, and as I think about it now, it's like, you know what? Because conflict as a strategy is connection in my family. You know what I'm saying?
And I think a young child, and so you as a kid, you learn there's a love in conflict.
Yeah. It's the same way you learn, like, if I love you, I want to hit you or something. You know what I mean? Like,
right, totally.
Right? And then you learn, oh, love means I hurt somebody. You know what I mean? Like, how does this actually, it's confusing.
Yeah, and I think this is where the subconscious part comes in. We're drawn towards what we know to be true. So, you're in a relationship where you've learned love is fighting, and then you finally date the person who's nice to you, and you go, this is boring. And like, right? And you're like, this is what I wanted, but I don't want this. And so I think that's interesting with your father, though, that then drawing in the conflict made you feel connected to him.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, because we'd be in the conflict together, and it's like something to do. Like, there was always a conflict, not so much like between us. I mean, sometimes it would be between us, but with something. And then that would be exciting and interesting to kind of like,
So
come
Evan,
around.
what for you as a kid then, do you remember what you felt or thought when you were told, like, hey, we're not going to express these things to you, but we're here for you?
I know for myself that I would be considered a highly sensitive person. I mean, there's actual, like, somebody's written books and so on about that and so on, where I can feel things at a much higher level than others.
Oh, wow.
Like, if we're sitting here, that's why I'm going through the other thing. I can ask you, but I can actually just feel it. So, and then I can name it myself.
Wow.
Right? Like, when we were going through that thing before and I was naming emotions and so on, did they seem fairly accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was feeling what you're feeling.
Like empathic. Or
I guess that could be a word for it, right? However, it was always that you don't show these emotions. I come up from the upbringing of, you can cry, I give you something to cry about, which is like, nah. I don't want something to cry about, which doesn't necessarily mean the feeling to cry goes away, right? It just means we stuff it down much more.
So this is interesting. Was this a response? Like, was this a strategy that you learned to
Total
be?
strategy. Yeah, that's how you survive, right? And the other thing I learned that was probably helpful at the time, but not helpful after, is I had a lot of energy, and I guess the labeling on it would be like hyperactive or ADHD and so on, which is always like, can't you calm down? What I noticed is that a good amount of my anxiety in my, I would just say adult years, because I'm, age-wise an adult.
Yeah.
In my system, it doesn't feel okay to be excited, which then turns into anxiety, right? So it feels like actually fear.
Yeah.
So then I really have to, as I fear something, right, which is either, especially when it's fearing of like entering into a bigger stage, going to come up into something bigger, and I feel fear around that, it's actually excitement a lot of times that is not allowed. So that's the most latest one that I've kind of been like noodling, because it's like, well, this is interesting. I've been held back by fear on things like anxious on doing like my workshops, right? I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then when I realized, oh, actually, if I sit with it and allow myself to feel it, this is actually excitement, but I'm not,
Right.
but I'm not allowed to be excited.
Yes.
You know what
Conditioning.
I mean? Yeah, I'm not allowed to be excited, or there's pain coming.
So let me paint this picture for you. I mean, have you ever done like somatic work where you go express that out of you? Like, I'm tired of this strategy pattern, right? That's in me, and no to this, and yes to like agency and excitement. Like, have you ever done that
I don't
kind of
know
work?
if I've done so much like guided exercising on it and
Okay.
so on. I've done quite a bit of, whether it's breath work or just actually doing it kind of on my own to an extent.
Yeah,
Which
okay.
is let me feel the emotion that I'm avoiding
Okay.
and go there. Or most recently, what I know that for grief has been popping up, but I've been avoiding that. So it's like, okay, let me feel this grief, so my mind says, okay, let me feel the grief, let me go through it, and my body's like, hell no, and
Right.
or it'll like completely try to disappear it, so I don't notice where. And then the exercise for that was to put myself in a position that grief looks like. And the moment I put myself into that position, it was like, oh, here it comes. And I was like, whoa, this is overwhelming. And yeah.
This is neat.
So is that like what you're talking about, or?
Yeah, it's like, so I'll give it one more of the Hoffman models, which is the quadrinity, which is your intellect, your emotional self, your body, and your what they call spiritual self. Not
Okay.
religion oriented, but just your authentic you. But what I like about what you're saying is like, my whole life I went through my intellect. How can I think my way through this? What should I do differently? Right?
Yeah.
Boom. Never spent much time with my body, understanding what's happening inside, and maybe a little bit of work with my emotions, but never had a concept of like the non-pattern me, right? Spiritual self in that language. What I appreciate about what you're saying is like, we can intellectually decide I don't want to do this anymore. What I find I needed was like to actually like get my body involved. I mean, body keeps a score, right?
Yep.
Like, I think he talks a lot about this, which is like, it's energy stored in you. It's not going away through thinking and just deciding I'm done with this, I'm going to let it out.
Okay.
And so I think to have a method, I mean, these rage rooms, right, that are all over the world today. Why is this so popular? Because we need to let this stuff out. And I think to have a way that's not just cognitive based, meditation can be great, but to like actually like cathartically get your body
Yes.
involved, express, get it out. That I think is like it's an unlock.
And so is that part of the Hoffman?
It is.
And then it's a guided exercise where everybody is kind of doing it, or is it like individual?
Got it.
Or
Well,
or
you're
secret,
in
or is
your
it
in.
secret?
No, you know what Hoffman's very clear about is nothing is a secret. Even like, that's kind of interesting. When you sign your paperwork for Hoffman, it actually says you're going to be hitting a pillow with a wiffle ball bat. People always get in the process like, well, we're doing this. It's like, you actually sign that you're willing to do this. But that's one form of expression. They do writing.
For anger?
It is to express emotion. So oftentimes it is anger that comes out, but it could be grief, sadness, pain, I mean, all that stuff comes out. I mean, it's so interesting. It's like a group, it's an individual journey in a group setting. So like with, 40 people, like some are angry. I mean, some people, what I love, like I've had stories of like seeing people where like, they're like, I've never been allowed to express anger. Like I thought this was stupid for the first beginning. And then I tapped into something. I let out, I said things that my parents would never let me say. And what I'm sharing now is like, what's interesting, people that have like body ailments that they're like, I've had this my whole life. There's been some crazy stories I've seen, like with my own students in that process. They come back and they're like, this thing is gone.
So you got to do that in the group. For the release portion.
You're in a group setting, yeah. You're kind of in your own station, though, if that makes sense.
Like separated out by like how breathwork is. You kind of like yoga room kind, but distance.
Like you got your own chair, your own little station.
Oh, it's a chair.
I mean, and then for that work, you get on the ground with a pillow, but but you're in like your own space.
So what would be the basic steps in that if you're facilitating it?
It would be, you got to use your voice, you got to use body, you got to use intention. So your body's naturally getting involved in that, right? You're going to be, but actually that's an important element. You have to you have to hit, right? Some people want to zone out.
Oh, so this exercise is always hitting.
Well, this is one activity called bashing. One form of expression they do. This is wiffle ball bat, pillow. So one thing you do later is like you write out on a pattern card, like a pattern you want to get rid of, and then you're actually hitting the card. That comes a little bit later, but so it's no to this. I'm done with this. I'm almost like articulating where I got it. I'm tired of this, mom, dad. I'm done. This is your pattern. It's not mine. And then it's like, yes, like, what do you want back in your life instead of this pattern? So it's kind of like your body trying to inform your mind.
It's got integration.
Yeah. So voice, body, intention, no, yes. I'd say those are primary components of it.
So do you separate it out by emotion, or it's
Tell me what you mean by
so
separate it
like
out.
it would be like so this exercise we're going to be moving anger, or this exercise we're moving sadness, or this exercise we're moving,
No, because I think I view it as it's hard to predict what a person's going to feel.
So it's this exercise we're moving whatever just needs to be moved, and then these are the steps.
we're expressing, see what comes up for you.
And does part of that include putting your body into the position of whatever the feeling that you're trying to move is?
That's a great question.
Because
So
it would be different, right?
yeah, we do a lot of like visualization work, like where they do embody the pattern energy. In that particular part, because they're sort of in their own journey, we're not like directly linking, like feel the energy in your body and then express it. But they've done that work prior to doing expression. So it's
How about where someone is having a hard time like finding it, right? You know what I mean? Because there's people with, the term is alexithymia, where you can't really feel emotions. You just can't feel them.
yeah.
So then one technique is to be able to act. You just act it out. You act that as if you're you with that emotion, and you're acting. Yeah.
That we do that as well.
Do that one too?
The other thing that's interesting too, we check in with them throughout the day on what they're feeling, and I've come to appreciate. In real life, we say, "How are you feeling, Evan?"
Yeah.
Which then, good, great, fine, is an assessment is actually an adequate answer to that question. But if I say, "What are you feeling, Evan?" Good no longer really makes sense, and so we actually, like, Hoffman has a creation of a vocabulary for emotion words that sometimes we're literally saying, go look on this sheet, like check in. Like,
That's easier.
yeah, name what you're feeling. But I've come to do that in my own life. Like, instead of always saying, how are you feeling? That I think is a really smart ask at work. I don't have time. It's actually just a habitual question that I'm just trying to engage with you. To ask somebody like, Evan, what are you feeling right now? That's a total different question. And I find when people ask me, like, I often go, I don't know. Like, give me a second, and then I got to be like, what am I feeling? It's like, whoa, I didn't realize I was feeling this. So that's one way that we try to get people. I wasn't familiar with that term you said, but like past like an inability to identify emotions. I mean, for some people, it's the beginning of their journey of like, wow, I never even was aware.
Yeah.
Because
there's some people, so the term I use is alexithymia. It's like you can't feel emotions. You just don't notice them.
Wow.
Some people, I don't know if you would consider that compartmentalized so much that you no longer know or realize it's there. It's like they look visually dysregulated.
Okay.
They have a general idea they might be upset, maybe not. But it's like, I don't know. I'm out of this space. So I think the common term would be like out of touch or something. You know what I mean?
Okay, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you've seen a lot of, right? They're totally dysregulated, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, and like we often reference like the journey from your head to your heart. It's like most people I think live primarily
That's
in their head.
the longest journey, right? Is like 12 inches from there. Yeah.
Right. But I think, Evan, like a lot of people are completely unaware that, I have this part of me that is emotions, and to just name it as like an aspect of you and go, let me try and check in with this aspect and see what's happening for me. I don't know that that's encouraged, at least, in the history of like raising. I mean, that's one thing I'm trying to do as a father is like, it's funny you were giving that example earlier of like a mother like saying that to their kid. I'm like, what you just said, I'm trying to model even it for my son, and I'm realizing how hard it is at times. Like just last night, Evan, I mean, my son had a terrible night of sleep last night. I was even like in my head already, I was paranoid about like, man, if I don't sleep well, I'm going to be in this podcast. My words aren't even going to come to me. And I felt last night the rage that my father expressed with me, that before having kids, I was so judgmental. I was like, I cannot believe how angry my dad would get. Like that felt wrong. And I've had a few, I mean, I'm gonna get teary-eyed because I've had numerous moments now where with my son, I've felt that same rage. And I was like, holy shit, like this is what he felt. And I at least now have like some awareness and tool, like I can manage it. But I'm like, shit, he felt this and he just let it out. And I felt that last night with my son. It's crazy, right? How like on autopilot. Who knows what kids get? And so and the reason I think I was bringing this up is like, I'm trying to be so cognizant of like, if my son is upset and unhappy, it's like, it's okay. You're upset. Like, Dad, I gets upset too. Like, what, and he's not at an age where he can really describe it yet, but I find myself wanting to be like, what's happening, and he's almost starting to like be able to articulate a little bit, but yeah, it's like, I mean, I hope the modern world, the age we're in, is we're raising kids with more capacity for like understanding themselves and not so much judgment from a parent down.
So with that rage that you felt, what was the emotion you weren't allowing yourself to feel?
I'm trying to think of the word. It's like unjust is the word that's coming to me. I don't think I'm naming that perfectly, but it's like this. I'm upset that the system isn't like working in my favor or something. Like it's the emotion is anger. The reason is.
But you felt the anger.
I can't control. Maybe I felt the anger. I felt anger.
So anger to me is typically like a boundary, right? We're setting boundaries, like something's up, I got to get distance and so on, right? And then the rage is like at the next level of that. And then, so what is it? What emotion are you not allowing yourself to feel that requires you to have anger to keep distance from it?
Well, help me work through this. It was that I wanted sleep, and that I already had put in my head. Like, I've noticed if I don't have a great night of sleep, my words don't come, as clearly for me. So I think I was already anticipating, and I had, some important meetings this morning. I have a training after this. So I was like, I need to sleep today. I had this podcast, which was important to me. So it's like I had a need for.
So you have a need for sleep, right?
Right.
And you're trying to avoid a certain something because that would create another emotion that you do not want to feel. What emotion is that? So example would be like, let's say you're homeless. You're like, I don't want to be homeless. But what if when you're homeless, you were going to be in total bliss?
Right.
You felt totally complete and bliss.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Then it's not that bad. It's an emotional experience we're avoiding. What emotional experience are you avoiding that?
So then it's ultimately shame. It's that I won't do this well tomorrow if I don't sleep. So I've put conditions upon myself in order to perform the way I'd like. So, I mean, help me. I don't know what the emotion is. You're right. I'm angry because I'm doubting myself ultimately.
So the anger is to get distance from the shame.
I think so.
Yeah. Which is the crying is keeping me up, the crying and so on. And then the other piece too in that, which is the kind of trying to get away from the outcome that we're trying to avoid, is potentially what is the need that is under the crying of your son that you don't allow in yourself.
Okay, yeah. Oh, maybe you went in a slightly different direction than I was going to say.
Two different directions. Yeah, I am going in a different direction on this one. Right?
Yeah, when you said the need underneath his crying is also shame, how can I not predict, understand? Yeah.
So you have two pieces that are going at the same time, right?
Right.
One is that when we have these kids, it's like now we have our heart outside our body.
Yeah.
It's a living mirror against everything that's going on in us, right? So
it's deep.
If he's having an emotion that you are sensitive enough to pick up, you feel that, and it's like, okay, let's say shame, right? I feel the shame, and that is not okay in my system. I need to get a distance from it, and so on. And then in a fraction of a second, it goes, this is caused by him. I need to shut his ass down. The same way I shut me down inside.
Right.
So I'm going to shut
That's
him
how I
down.
would do it to myself.
And then the anger comes, and right quickly after that comes the rage when it's like, I can't do this. That's the that's the pattern, right?
I think you nailed that. I think you're right. Like it's my own fear of deficiency as a parent.
It's like, what inside of you do you not accept that is being activated and you're seeing in real time?
I mean, here's the interesting thing too, Evan, is like, what part, I'm running this through my head. Like, the reason that I even got through that last night as well as I did, my wife's amazing, right? And she was so loving, and she's so loving with him. I mean, I learned how to be loving with him through her, and she takes him out, goes outside, and, men, they're like, let me go to sleep. Like, And then I can't sleep, of course. And so I walk outside and she's like,
You can't sleep because you're feeling guilty?
yes, ultimately. Yeah. She's out there dealing with him. I'm in here trying to sleep. Like, what? So I go out there and I'm like, just really just to show presence. Like, can I help? She's like, you go to sleep. You got a big day tomorrow. And like, while I still couldn't sleep until they came back in and he was okay, because I just was worried, I guess. And you're right. I mean, and it's like about my own abilities. But then, so I guess what I'm curious, your thoughts on this is like, so what part of this does the people around us also play a role in bringing us whole? Yeah.
Everything. Because what
Yeah.
happens is we get attracted to those parts of us that needed to move back into homeostasis that weren't ever done.
Right.
So we're constantly looking and creating it outside in our reality in order to try to hope that that's going to result. So
Yeah.
let's say that my dad doesn't want to give me the unconditional love that I want. I'm actually looking for people unconsciously with his characteristics
Right.
to do it for me.
Yeah. To
Right.
make you feel
And
that
then when they
wholeness.
don't, because they have the same kind of, baggage, then it doesn't work.
Right.
But when you find somebody that does, for some reason, they've done their own work or whatever it happens, then now it's like, oh, wow, I feel kind of complete on this. So that's the attraction
Yeah.
kind of piece
And-
to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it, and that's why it has to be this healthy relationship, or you're drawing towards, like you just said, unconsciously what you needed or didn't get from a parent, or what they had or whatnot. And one thing about Charisse that I've come to appreciate, I don't know that I understood the term unconditional love until actually being with her. Like, I think she offers that non-judgment. I realize how, like, I don't know, selfish or like think like she can do something and I can move to judgment so quick. I truly I experience unconditional love with her. And I even think that was in her response last night. And I feel like when you have a relationship like that, where you can give that to each other, man, that's when you just have this beautiful symbiotic relationship. But I think both people got to be doing work to get to that state too,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that always happens. I'm
Probably
thinking of
doesn't always happen. No.
I'm thinking of this story I heard recently. You've probably heard this, but I'll just tell it really quick. So a Buddhist monk teacher is teaching a class, and he says to the class, man's walking through a crowded room carrying a cup of coffee, and he gets bumped, and the coffee spills. Class, why did this happen? And the way the story is told, it's Buddhist monks, so the kids are trying to be, they're like, mindful. He's not being very mindful, all these things. Like, what would you answer to that, just hearing that? Gets bumped, busy room, spills coffee. Why?
I think I saw that one too. It was something
Okay.
like there was coffee in the cup or something, right?
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
That's his, so the kids all come up with these great answers. He wasn't being very mindful. And the Buddhist monk says, no, he was carrying coffee. He says, if he had been carrying water, he would have spilled water. He says, so when people bump you, what comes out is what's inside of you.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and like
totally.
it's like resonating with me so much. Like I notice in particular driving. Sometimes you can like cut me off and do these things, and I'm like, it's cool. You're probably in a rush. It's no big deal. That's because I'm whole inside. And sometimes I'm running late or I'm frustrated. Somebody cuts me off, and I have this whole energetic reaction. And it's just, I thinking about it now, it's like, because I'm carrying anger inside. When I am whole myself, you can bump me, you can move me. Love comes, like truly love comes out when I'm in a great space. And now then it's making me realize like how much work I have to do to have love inside and let that out and not let out whatever else could be in my cup.
Well, what if it's healthy anger?
Tell me about that.
Healthy anger. Someone's coming in, they try to encroach your space. They're taking advantage of you. They're trying to do something that hurts
Right.
your physical safety or so on. You have healthy anger. Someone is taking advantage. Give me distance, right?
Yeah.
That becomes unhealthy when it doesn't subside.
Right,
And
right.
you're
That's true.
And now you're back at home. You're cruising, with your mom or something. You just kind of nothing. That threat is no longer there, but we can't come back into, a neutral homeostasis and regulated range. That's when it becomes
Yeah.
unhealthy, right? When the alarm no longer stops turning off. right?
Totally.
The alarm is good when you need an alarm, but if it's on 24/7, then now it's just unhelpful.
It's like I'm smiling at him because I'm picturing, you ever watch like Instagram, right? And you see somebody does something terrible to someone and the person, calmly says, hey, it's not okay. And if you do that again, we're going to have words.
Mm-hmm.
And then calmly walks off. And I'm like, man, I don't know that I'd have had that same reaction. And I do think like in me, probably from being the youngest child, from not getting respected, is there's a pent up, like, if you totally disrespect me, just what you said, healthy anger, or
Yeah,
maybe
it's
mine's
healthy anger.
unhealthy, but yeah, like I'm going to like
It's only
puff
unhealthy
up
when
and like,
it starts to like cause problems.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
That's what anger is. It helps us get distance. It helps
Totally.
us, make sure we have boundaries. It's letting you know
Yeah.
where a boundary typically needs to be, and maybe it's not.
And I was going to go there too. Expression of boundaries, I think, comes
Yeah.
out through anger, right? And it's like a sign of hope. If I'm willing to get angry at you, it means I think we can, like, have you ever been in a place where you're like, you disrespect someone enough that if they do anything, you're like, it's not even worth my anger. Now, I'm not saying that if there's a boundary needed, but like I've been in this
I have
scenario.
no problem getting angry.
And that sounds like from your dad.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about anger differently in these days, but how I would think about it prior was that anger typically comes close second after something else, like
Okay.
like fear or sadness or so on,
Yeah.
and then anger is coming to get distance,
That makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
But oh yeah, I mean, no, anger in my household was absolutely allowed, normal. Yeah, it's okay to be angry.
were you-
but not okay to cry. You know what I mean?
And it was okay for you to be angry at them too? Or was,
Yeah,
because
for-
sometimes
it's just
that's like
anger.
not
People
allowed.
just
Like,
angry.
okay.
Like, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. One of the questions I love to ask people, like, I think I go where you go with emotion, is like, what's the unmet need? Like, ultimately,
Absolutely.
strategy patterns are an unmet need.
Like from nonviolent communication, you mean?
Yeah,
Unmet
yeah,
need. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's either the need or it's the strategy,
Right.
and all strategy is moving toward that need. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
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 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. And then trying to bring that forward.
Actually, normally when I'm doing work with anybody or even myself, I'm making sure that we identify what is the core need first,
Oh, neat.
because then everything can be mapped to that. Then you can determine a strategy, whether it's going to successfully get you there or not, or at least a general idea of what's your success chance. Because if the current strategy is no longer leading there, doesn't work, right? So if the strategy, let's say my strategy to get me love is to kind of give you a hard time because I think that, I'm going to do that, and then somehow that is going to make me connected and you're going to give me love. But essentially what it does is it makes you withdraw from me and then makes me feel abandoned or lonely, which is what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah.
That strategy is no go, right?
Yeah,
But most
yeah.
people don't realize that because strategies were put into place unconsciously so long ago that it's just over and over again.
Do you find people can even articulate their needs?
Yep. Because nonviolent communication in general has a worksheet. It has a list.
I see. Right,
It says
right.
these feelings you feel when your needs are met. These feelings you
Yeah.
feel when your needs are not met. And on the bottom it says these. I think I have the paper over there. It's like these are some examples of core needs like
Yeah.
love, connection, interdependence, autonomy, freedom, safety, things like that.
Well, and that's where I was going, is I find my experience is like people can't necessarily name those until you do the work.
No, normally
and,
they
like,
cannot. Normally they're
Right, it's
confused
like,
and stuck
yeah.
and whatever else, right?
Right.
It's like, I don't know. And what happens is for especially very, very like capable people, it's all strategy typically. Am I going to do this or am I going to do this? Am I going to go and take this other job or am I going to try to, stay with my company or do I start my own company? And they're all trying to figure out all these strategies without ever determining what is the need you're trying to meet.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a trip with no destination. Like, what are we doing,
Okay, I want to run this through you, Evan. This is really fun to like hear your brain on this. So Hoffman's final stage is called New Ways of Being. It's trying to be place of being. So one of the practices, this thing they call recycling, which is a brief visualization where, and this is connecting with what you were asking earlier about being in the patterns energy. So you can do it looking backwards or forwards, but we'll talk backwards. So you go into a scene where the strategy came out, the pattern came out. First, you take on the pattern's energy, like you feel it in your body.
Okay.
And then you allow the scene to replay, noticing what you're thinking, feeling, and doing in that scene. Then there's a couple different ways you can do it. The way I like is you literally grab the patterns where you feel it most strongly in your body. You rip the pattern out, put it between your hands, churn it. You see the pattern's energy dissipating. You pull your hands apart. It's this beautiful luminescent white ball of energy. Place that ball back in your body where you pulled it out. It then infuses every cell. You shift your body posture, take on. So they've done some work to understand what we mean by spiritual self. This is your non-pattern self. You're just your own inner tuition. you then walk back into the scene as your spiritual self. And it's not an intellectual thing. It's like you're observing and then you watch what happens. How do you act? And then as the scene plays out, you notice what you're thinking and feeling and doing. And then you start to name the qualities that are coming forward instead of what that patterns energy was. And what I love about this experience is like oftentimes if you ask people what should they do instead of what they did, they have this intellectual answer, right? Boom. Then they do the recycling and they come back out and they're like, oh, that was totally different than what I thought I needed to be. And that to me is like the hack of what we're ultimately trying to figure out is like not the strategy intellectually that I need, but just sort of like authentically, who could I be in this scenario? And then neurons that fire together, wire together. So then if I do recycling over and over and I walk in deeper connection to, again, that authentic core, then maybe I can walk that way in real life. And that's the whole sort of final stage of Hoffman is. So what do you think of that? Like knowing all you know?
It sounds similar in like IFS would be like a redo and update.
Okay.
So Carl Jung has a great saying, which is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will lead your life and you will call it fate.
Yeah, I love that.
So a lot of it to me is like all these different models and you know, techniques and so on, everything to shamanism, which is getting people to the same place to an extent. You know what I'm saying? Well, how you get there, I don't know. Like it's you, but you trying to get there, which is making what's unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
And then updating it.
Yeah.
You're basically updating everything. Yeah. And then so basically now we are letting go of what doesn't work, you know, replacing that with what does work, and then hoping that can integrate in now. It's almost like a process in a company, right? Totally. This process, we went through 5 whys and whatever, we found the root cause of it. Let's adjust our process. Our process now eliminates the constant failure on it, and then now we move on. That's the issue, is that like, you know, then you go a few, you know, longer down, people leave and so on, and then it's like you have these processes that are in place that are like, what the hell? This makes no sense whatsoever. It's like when this story I read where they were cutting the ends on the turkey and they would bake it and stuff, and then eventually it became like, why are we actually doing this? So they asked the grandmother, and like, oh, I did that because the pan that I was putting it in was too small.
Right.
And
so thought it was like a whole meaning to it.
You know, so, you know, we've been doing this for how long in that way without really knowing why.
Yeah, and you just named something.
I'm gonna update it.
Yeah, that's it. The update, I think, is the challenge, right? So if I upload a new operating system that has bugs in it, it's not necessarily making me better. And I think that's the challenge in real life, is that for a lot of the world, they don't have access to any real self-help, and they're trying to update.
So I think if we look at it this way, then if you go with what is the trauma, right? So trauma is not what happens to us, it's what happens in us as a result of what happens to us, right? So we get a car accident, that's traumatic, but you know, a year down the line, the car accident's done, and for the most part, physical body is most likely healed, but maybe now I'm still scared to go in the car, maybe I have to only do things a certain way, and that's the trauma, right? It's stuck. It didn't have time or the proper environment to process and finish and then be, you know, it's like the alarm that went off and it's still going off.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one piece. And then now it's stuck in time. Mm-hmm. It's stuck in time. Yeah. So that's why when you say, okay, this is my 6-year-old and so on, 6-year-old's stuck in time. Because whenever that was happening, now that is a time capsule. It is stuck in, it is there, and so on. And it can heal. It still can heal.
Yeah.
That's why I said maybe, because I've seen it. The burden that's held in that. So the burden would be like the belief that something's wrong with me, I'm bad. That causes the feeling of shame, right?
Yeah.
That's the burden, right? But the burden is not the part of the kid. That's not the little kid piece, part of you. The little kid part of you is still sensitive and loving and everything that's, you know, it's wonderful. It just happens to hold a burden.
Yeah.
So there has to be the proper environment so that that child can release the burden.
Yeah.
And once the burden is gone, then it's gone. It's done. It's all said and done. And then you don't need the strategy no longer. Strategy doesn't work anymore because there's no need to protect against anything because there's no more pain in that area. That is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and I agree.
That's why
like,
I said,
how do you release the burden? You know, I think when you talk trauma, one of the like most interesting experiences for me, I was probably, let's call it 27, 28. I'm driving down 10th Avenue and this guy just turns right in front of me. My car hits his. The funny part of the story, Evan, is he gets out, he's carrying a bunny. He's got no shorts, no shoes on. Cops come, I'm watching them give this guy the test, and I swear it looks like this. Cop's finger, and he's like, he was on like a 2-second delay. He ends up being high. But the reason I'm telling the story is I remember for like a year, I would get in a car and I like was not trusting that people would just be driving straight. Like I couldn't break out of it. I'm like, I would get in my head. I'm like, I know this. I know this is catastrophizing. I know, like I could name all these things, but every time I was in a car, and then truly, like it was almost just like time.
It's like muscle memory.
Yeah, it was like time healed. I didn't see anybody at the time. This was before my own self work, but like that. Whenever I hear trauma, like I connect with it because I'm like, yeah, I could not.
So your self work, when you stopped reacting that way and so on, was before or after your self work?
It was before, but it was just like a year after the event. And I didn't do, I think I had enough data points after the event that I built to where I finally became like.
Well, the hard thing is that it's not a logical thing anymore, right? That thing is stuck in your body. So your body's reacting to it. If we waited for our brain to tell us every time, we'd all be dead.
Totally. And can we talk ayahuasca too? So,
yeah.
That's
I was wondering if you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, that's how
Okay.
That is where we met, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things, for the listeners, right? So we did ayahuasca together. And one of the things that happened for me on night one, oftentimes it sounds like people, throw up. I was just shitting, like, and I didn't throw up
Making
at
bear
all.
noises.
Yeah. Yeah, you heard. Crazy. I've never had an experience like that. I had no control of so now I'm jumping to reflection, right? And in reflection, I was like, I hold so much in my body. When you just said it triggered because I bet that was part of my experiences, like letting some of that out. I realized I go to these Hoffman experiences, I hear a lot of traumatic things. I never had a way to release.
Yeah.
And I think that was all coming out. It was like what was in my gut. And that was very informative to me of like, oh, I need a system for releasing all this
hygiene
stuff I hold in, but I'm curious, your ayahuasca experience, what was one of your takeaways?
From the first one or which one?
Well, you've done a few, right? Whatever you want to share. Actually, I'd be curious the first one though. What was that?
Yeah, the funny thing on that first one is that I went in just thinking about what's my purpose. I need to know a purpose and this and that. And then there's a point in there when grandmother spirit was like, women's groups. I was like, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, I was like, women's groups. What do you mean women's? I said, I'm a dude. Why am I?
Yeah.
She's like, get over it. And I was like, well, you sound just like my actual grandma.
That's awesome.
And it was like,
interesting.
Just get over it and so on. And that, how long was it? Years ago, right? And I finally am doing women's groups, which is interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah. But I think the thing with that and the hardest of that whole entire piece is that whole concept of surrender.
Yeah.
Because I was deathly afraid of vomiting.
Oh,
and I had to do therapy around that for months because I was scared of vomit. And I didn't vomit the whole time during that. And then the next time that I did it, I was like, let me just try and see if I can lean into this a bit and try to, because I was deathly afraid of it. The feeling of death and vomiting is the same. It's like if I'm vomiting, I swear, it's like that impending, I'm going to die.
Do you know why?
For vomiting?
Yeah.
I had all kinds of past life stuff. I had all kinds of stuff. But I remember there was a point in it where I was like, oh God, I'm going to vomit. And then I just made a mental note. I said, you know what? Whatever did happen or so on, I'm just going to let it go. And then once it was that full acceptance and okay with feeling it, then the vomit feeling went away.
Wow.
So what I realized at least for me, is that point of letting go is the entry point in to letting the medicine do its work, at least for me. So
totally.
That's what and then what I'm really delving quite a bit into lately is, what is the emotion that I'm not allowing myself to feel, right?
Oh, I love that.
What emotion am I not allowing myself to feel? And then welcome it in. This concept in general, and I've done so many different trainings, but this one comes from a coach named Joe Hudson. I really like Joe Hudson. He keeps things simple and actually doesn't regress much. So it's helpful, but it's like, what am I not allowing myself to feel? And then really trying to set aside designated times to do that. So when you brought up the somatic piece and how do you somatically release, like I've been playing around with that quite a bit lately, which is,
What works? Have you found something that works for you? Like
moving my body into the position of the actual emotion. So like, let's say it's grief, because I've had, in the last 3 years, I've had at least 20 of my friends die, including my parents. It's a lot of grief, so it would be like putting my body into a position of that feeling and trying to allow myself, and then boom, almost instantly start like convulsing and so on. Like how you do that.
Totally.
But I found actually in breath work, like what Eric Rosso does, like a holotropic breath work or so on, that's a really good way to move emotions, especially like crying stuff, because you're already doing the heavy breathing. So that just for the emotions to run through is kind of like pretty efficient, if you ask me. It's like, really, this is kind of efficient. I'm already there. But that whole one, which is like, what am I not allowing myself to feel? It is a big one, because there's a lot of resistance to it, right? And then if I can actually allow myself to feel it and welcome it without like feeling it so I can make it go away, then it's actually not that long. It might be 10 seconds, might be 30 seconds, but it's not like 10 hours. You know what I mean? It's pretty quick, and then it's almost like process is done and it can subside.
So check this out, because you said surrender and body awareness, and I've been getting like gout. It's weird, like almost since I started my Hoffman journey is when I really started taking off. I recently got on allopurinol, and I still was having like gout attacks sometimes at Hoffman, and I was like angry at my body, and I'm like, quiet, like I need to walk and all this stuff. And the last thing on my mind was surrendering to it. And then my therapist was great, and she was like, kind of like welcome it, like what's your body telling you and all this stuff. So briefly on this, and then I want to share this connection with a recent student. So I just started like paying attention, right? And I realized it was just like so much stress, like to go to Hoffman. I had so much work to try to get done to alleviate that so I could be fully present in Hoffman. And then I was like, and then I had so much when I got out of Hoffman and I was exhausted. So I think it was just like manifest and like this, and it was insane. And then I was working for Highgate Hotels. I had this leadership program where I was sending out 2 messages every week, a Tuesday and a Thursday, all their hotels. And it was incredibly stressful. I had to get approval and all this stuff. So I think that in combination with getting ready to go to Hoffman was huge. So that program ended. It lasted almost 4 years. It ends. And I used to have all these like blackheads on my nose, like just like probably every other day I'd just squeeze them. And I was like, this is part of my DNA. I have like blackheads or whatever. And then I end this program, my gout sort of magically goes away. I then don't have these blackheads. And I was like, this is crazy. Like my body was trying to tell me how stressed out I was. And I was just in like, I gotta do mode. So one last part of this is kind of neat. So in my last process, I had a student who was getting vertigo in the process. She was really upset. And she comes in, and she's so angry. And, in her pre-work, she'd had a history of not treating her body well. I'll just leave it at that, confidentially and everything. And so I did what my therapist did with me. I said, listen, how about this? Welcome it.
Yep.
Surrender to it. We talk about surrender in Hoffman. Surrender to it. Welcome it. And then I said, would you try this? Write your body an apology letter tonight. And this is one of those moments. So like the next day she comes in and she's like, this is crazy. Like the vertigo is gone. She's like, it usually lasts days, weeks, and stuff when it happens. And she said, I sat down to write that letter and I thought, this is so stupid. Why is he asking me to do this? And she said, then I just started like writing. She said, I had pages. I was like crying. And next day the vertigo's out. And I was like, this is it. It's like, surrender it, welcome it, learn from it, see it. And then I think, express it. Her expression was writing. She let stuff out, but I think that's the answer. It's like, this is healing.
Yeah. The process, whatever is in her body, completed, right?
Right.
So in IFS, we believe the work is around parts, right? Each of us have parts of us that protect us and parts of us that manage our life, and then some that are wounded and hold burdens like shame and fear and so on. And then you also have yourself, your spirit self that doesn't get hurt, comes in with you at birth, leaves with you at death.
Yeah.
The thing is that whenever there's trauma or any kind of protection needed in our system, our protective parts tend to jump in, covers up that self. We don't know where it's at. Kind of like the clouds covering the sky.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So a lot of the work then becomes, how do we build the relationship again inside so that the clouds will part on their own, sky comes through, and basically it's like adult supervision is more or less back in our system, and we're rebuilding relationship inside.
Okay.
Right? So one of the parts that protects me, I would call it my rage part. It sits like right here.
Okay.
So in one of the sessions, it was a demo session with a trainer, and I was the client, and I was talking about my part, this is my raging part. And then she said, ask this part what its name is. I said, oh, its name is rage. It goes, no, ask it what it wants to be called. So I said, okay, internally I said, okay, well, what's your name? What do you want to be called? And it's like, my name is balance. It says, because I keep balance in your system. I don't just rage. I also do things like I'm loving. I also do these other things, but you keep calling me rage. And I went, okay, my bad. I mean, this is literally what the comment, okay, my bad.
Wow.
I'll call you balance. It's like, okay. That relationship internally is completely different now, right? Yeah. It's like I have a friend who pooped in his pants when he's young, so call him like Doots,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you give him a nickname that's kind of derogatory to an extent. So what happens is, like, we'll typically name the parts by their impact, where they want to be named by their intention.
Oh, I love it.
So judgment, we might say, oh, this is my judgy part. But if you ask that part, what is your actual name? It said, I'm the one that...
Integrity or something.
Exactly, right? And be like, well, how are you doing that? And said, well, I do it this way. And what's your intention for me? My intention for you is to help you. You keep bashing me, but I've been doing this since I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like, show me when you had to do that. How'd you get this job? It shows you. And you're like, whoa, now there's a softening, a compassion. It's like, I didn't realize that. Now the relationship becomes connected.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to force this part of me to be out of my life. And because it's not wanted, because that's basically me going to war with myself.
Right.
It's different. It's opposite. And when there's a relationship like that, where it's, you're okay, like you're okay just being you, Corey.
Right.
Then there's no beefing like there was before. There doesn't have to be, because I don't have to now fight you. I don't have to fight. When I see judging going, I don't have to actually fight you because I don't accept it in me.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to fight in you is what I don't accept in me.
Yeah, that's neat. I'm like actively like doing that. Even in this session, you were asking me not to name it anger, but name it something else. And like,
ask it what it wants to be called.
Yeah.
And let it answer you, not another part answering for you. So this is the relationship building.
Yeah.
That's what I was referring to. It's not the bashing.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I should also reference like Hoffman's model is awareness, expression, compassion, forgiveness, new ways of being. So expression is just step two.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is, so parts will either hold a wound, like they're wounded, they're holding a burden. Like this one is, I'm holding like I am bad, something's wrong with me. And that is the pain, right, that comes up. And then the rest of the system goes, no, we ain't feeling that. Hell no, I'm going to protect against it. So the ones that manage everything become like proactive. And they're like, okay, no. We're going to become really funny. I'm going to manage the whole situation. I'm going to, people please this. I'm going to do whatever is needed. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to be handsome. I'm going to be a good athlete, all this kind of stuff. And then when that doesn't work and the other parts like, no, I'm still coming up, then the reactive ones jump in that are like, I'm going to shut this shit down.
Wow.
That could be rage. That could be any ism. You know what I mean? Any kind of, anything to numb it out or distract against it. Yeah. And it's just going to, we call it firefighter because it's like, I'm going to put out the fire and I don't give a crap if I destroy your whole house, but the fire is going out. Right? So then if you look at it in like real time, what happens is, boom, this part that's holding the wound of shame starts to come up because something happened. And now, hey, guys, I'm feeling this. And it's like, oh, hell no, I'm going to manage this. Yeah. Management doesn't work no longer. The rage starts coming out because I'm going to shut this thing down. and then rage comes out, boom, and then, okay, let's say it gets shut down. And then after things subside a bit, then the manager goes, why are you doing that? And starts to shame this one. Look at all the problems that you're doing. This one goes, I'm doing my damn job. And it bounces right off him. And guess where that shame goes? Boom, right to the one that holds it. And then now we go again.
Yeah.
So
I like IFS,
Yeah.
Evan. I think it's a really cool system and like makes a lot of sense.
it has limitations to an extent, but yeah, I like it as a model. I use it a lot.
It's neat. I mean, just the few times you've shared with me about it, like I see so many like it's like the universal energy is up here, right? And all these models are tapping into it, and it's like there's so many like and they have their variations and their differences, but they're all sort of tapping into this similar like energy and
They're all going to the same place, which is, can I provide an environment that the body can heal itself?
right.
If you
Yeah.
cut your arm, the best we can do is clean out that wound and bandage it up
Yeah,
so that
that's
your
true.
body heals itself. If it doesn't have the environment, it's not clean and so on, it's not going to heal. It's the
Right.
same exact thing to me with emotional
Makes sense.
wounds, which is, do you have the environment for the body to heal itself? Meaning the same example I gave you with your mom there and so on, it was enough that that would not become a wound, right? And when you don't have the wound, you don't have the additional wound and additional, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Can you get to the place where you have the environment needed for the body to heal itself? Whatever the techniques around that, I don't know, but that's kind of where we're all trying to move toward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very cool. I like it. I like how you just described that because that's so true. And even like the science mind, right? That's trying to understand what we're saying about body healing and stuff like that actually connects. Have we created the environment where this can heal?
Yeah. Because
know?
realistically, in the Hoffman piece, think about it. Do you really heal them? Are you going like heal and then they healed?
Yeah, no.
No.
And
You're creating an environment with a group to curate energy in a certain direction and provide certain security and safety and guardrails and so on, so
Yeah.
that their bodies can do what they're doing. One person over here might be crying, one might be laughing, one might be doing nothing. It looks like nothing, but their body's doing something. You know what I'm saying? They're all moving in, their body's doing whatever it needs to do with the intelligence of that, trying to get to
Totally.
the same place.
Well, and how do you feel about this sort of analogy? Like, I think that like you can heal, but the operating systems are still in there and they can resurface.
Nah,
You don't think
not
so?
the same one. No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because think about it, you cut your arm, you might have a scar after, but it's going. I mean, you could have had other wounds at the same time. The issue a lot of times is that you have the original wound, right? Which may not be yours. It may be your dad's.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It may be
Right.
something generational that passes on and so on. You
Yeah.
just picked it up because, that's just, they pass it to you. You never told them you don't want it. It's yours, right? So you have the original wound. It's kind of like the toilet just got clogged. And then everything that kind of activates that wound gets stuck on, because it's stuck, it clogged the toilet, it gets added on until you have the little thing at work where someone says, hey, can you pass me the thing from the copper? You go, motherfucker. And it's like, whoa,
Right.
what I was so, that guy's crazy, It's because that and the other 8,200 things after it
Build on it.
is what it was. So when you
Yeah.
can release the first original one, and that's gone, that's what most models that I know of are trying to do. That original wound, boom,
Right.
then it's almost like you flush a toilet.
Yeah.
And then now when the paper thing or whatever is there, it's just that. It's not that and the other 8,200 things before it.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, and I think where I was going with this is like I've come to use this analogy of like a sports team. Do they, when they get good, do they stop practicing and just go play the games? And like, no, they keep practicing. They keep driving all these things. And like, I think I've come to appreciate that self growth is this way too. You can't stop practicing and just wait for the game to occur, right? So, like shame, for example, like I've done work on my shame message, but it's always there. It's sort of in me and it rears its ugly head at times. And I believe for me to keep it at bay, I need to keep doing the practices, the tools that I know that, keep me in connection with spirit. And like, I think sometimes people stop doing the work at all. And then in 2 years, they're like, oh, it's all back. And like, that didn't work. And it's like, well, no, you stopped practicing.
I think the way that I would look at it too is that the shame would be the burden, right? The belief, an extreme belief or thought or something like that is causing pain,
Yeah.
right? So that part and that burden could be released and healed. But doesn't mean there's not another one with that.
Right.
from something
Becomes
else. You know what I'm saying?
right. And that I think that's what I'm saying
And
too. Like,
the other thing about that is that, to me, if you think about it, like, if you go, okay, the shame that's in you, right?
yeah.
Like on a scale of like 0 to 10, 10 would be absolute and 0 would be nothing. What number would you give it for how much you welcome it into your life?
Like right now.
Yeah. On a daily basis or whatever.
Yeah, and it's low. I don't welcome it
And be like
much.
super cool to be here. Hey, I'm glad you, like the way you have your son, like a hard
Right.
day, you see your son is over there and then you're like, I love my
Yes.
son. What number would you give your son?
Like, what do you mean?
Like how much you accept him, welcome him
Oh,
and love him and want him to be there.
if I'm totally honest, it's probably in the 7 to 8 range. Like,
Okay.
I'm trying, but there's
Right.
little things.
How about your son at the best, the very best?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very best, it's 10. Like,
10, right?
I'm like,
Yeah. It's that the piece of like, I'm not welcoming this thing that causes all the issue.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
okay, here's an example that, so I had this mantra, right? That's been a certain way for years, but doing the work that I did, finally I started adding components, which are like, I love me through my imperfections. I love my vulnerability. And these are like statements that I started wanting to like feed myself daily, which I guess is
Do you
actually,
fully but is your actions the same as
well,
what you're saying?
well, I mean, no, in a sense, it's why I have to say it. It's like a reminder. And then I think sometimes my actions do follow in that. But if I don't say it,
What is that? Tell me what the mantra is.
well, it's a whole thing, like awake with gratitude that the sun has risen, that I've awakened, that a beautiful day awaits me. Life is amazing, and I choose to focus on all the wonderful things around me and stay mindful of how magnificent each moment is. I'm a lion, which is kind of a visual image for me.
So when you say those, how much, like on a scale of 0 to 10, do you feel it's real in your body? 10's high.
8 or 9.
Always? Like if you weren't having to like focus on it and tell yourself that all the time.
Oh, like does it live in me without me doing
Yeah.
it? No,
Like
no, it
sucker real?
doesn't. It's
Yeah.
it's why I got to do it, and I'm amazed when I do it, like how different I can feel in like a minute. I'm like, wow, had I not said that to myself, I was operating off automatic conditioning. Like limiting voices, all this stuff coming in. I use this analogy too a lot, which is, whatever you water in a garden grows, right? Weeds or flowers. What I always think about that is like the weeds are always growing. Like even if you don't, you try and pluck them all this stuff. And that's my mind is like the weeds are these.
So here's the piece. You're looking at weeds and so on, but what if you just loved it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
accepted
that's
it
right.
and welcomed it?
Yeah, I guess that's the practice. Yeah.
Which is the hard part because it's the
Which-
struggle against that, which is
Yeah, which
causing you your
not
pain.
totally and not natural for me at all. I appreciate that, and I think that's where like my mantra. So the additions have been like I love myself for all my imperfections. I love my own vulnerability. Those are ones that aren't even as fully baked yet because like they're newer, and I don't believe them when I say them sometimes.
What if you added on to that the work where the parts of you that you don't really approve of and so on? Because it's not when you say when it's
Yeah,
like
I
when it's
think-
that when it's like I don't approve of it. What that actually is we're blended with a protective part that's judging it.
Yeah,
And the reason that
that's
we
right.
judge it is because we're trying not to feel it.
That's
Right.
right.
So what's happening is that how do we get to the point of compassion where I love this and I love my shame and I
Yeah.
welcome it every day and we can cruise together, no problem. Because if I can cruise with mine, I'm gonna cruise with yours.
It's true.
How do you get to that? And you have to be able to build relationship with it
Yeah.
and the ability to be able to actually feel it and not freak out.
I think that's brilliant, Evan. I think that's it. Like,
Not my idea. I was from other people.
well,
Yeah.
Yeah, but to welcome, to not fight, to build. I like what you just
Yeah.
said there, build a relationship with it. I mean, as you're saying that, I'm realizing like I've been able to do that with certain elements for me, but like the ones that I really don't like, I don't do that.
So the ones where you say I don't really like, it's like if you actually sat with it and so on, you'd see this is a part of me that is protecting me from
Yeah.
feeling this. That's talking as I.
right, exactly.
Right. So
yes.
and then what happens is if you actually had the conversation with that from your heart and yourself
right.
to really hear about why it holds that pain and says, look what I had to do. I'm getting beat, I'm getting yelled at and this and that. I don't know what's going on. It's like, oh my God, I get it. And then
Yeah,
once that
it's-
part once it feels like you get it,
You've heard.
it will lower all the intensity on its own.
Right.
Because it feels heard and seen and valued. It's getting the environment it needed in order to heal itself. And then it can move along that.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. And that's the challenge. Yeah. Welcome and not fight. Communicate.
You ever go into like a cold plunge?
Yeah.
It's like that, like, I don't know if it's how you are, but when it's like, I can feel my legs in it a bit. And then it's like that when it's going to go to my torso. So it's like, oh, I don't really want to. And then that initial, like, I don't really want to be in here. Right. It's that kind of fighting is like that. That's how I kind of feel like it. So I do a lot of this work in the cold plunge.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I'm going to suffer in it. It's like I'm going in at the same time. That same uncomfortable is like, I didn't want to do it. Okay, let me feel it, try and feel. And then it can kind of go at the same time. I
love that.
I tend to find that's a little bit easier for me. But it's fighting, you know what I mean, that causes all the problems.
I like that because I think the challenge that I have is finding the time and space to do the welcoming, and that like habit stacking, this concept you stack with something else, but like doing a cold plunge and then giving myself time and space to do that connects.
It could actually just be like 2 minutes or 1 minute, when am I going to, it's not that, it's I'm avoiding it. You know how it is? It's like the time to make a decision is like immediate, but the amount of time it takes to come to the actual decision is like forever. It's that.
Which is why like intention is the driver of everything, like I find like if I set my alarm even and said I'm going to spend these 2 minutes on doing it, I'll do it. But if I don't, I just forget. I just don't even think of it,
We'll protect ourselves from not doing it.
Right.
Because I don't want to do it. Do I really want to feel the stuff that I've been hiding and trying to avoid for like 47 years or whatever?
Totally.
Not really. You know what I mean? Like, but what happens is that for 47 years, it's been trying to finish the cycle so it can lower its own intensity, meaning like it needs me to feel it. Yeah. Because that signal, you have to hear the signal. It's like your mom calling you for dinner, you ignore her. I don't know about you, but it was going to get louder.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be some yelling coming pretty soon.
That word surrender has come to mean so much to me. It's like whenever I catch myself just fighting what's happening, it's like, no, just surrender to this moment. Allow myself to be present. Like, what am I experiencing right now?
Yeah.
And then the hard part for me is trusting that I have the abilities to handle whatever comes.
That's the piece, right? Because it feels like it's going to be forever. It feels like I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to break down and never come back to normal. And so far, even through psychedelics and so on, that has not happened. But doesn't mean it makes it easier. And really, the feeling of it only it's probably like 10 seconds. It's fast.
Right. They say an emotion lasts 90 seconds and then you recycle it, I was just reminded of this like scene. I think it was like a Tom Hanks thing. It was like an actor's table thing I was watching, and they said, what advice would you give to like the newest actor or whatever? He said something like, just to know that whenever things aren't going well, it'll pass. And then to know that when things are going really well, it'll pass. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's so true. You don't stay in that space.
That's why I feel like, you know what? It's helpful to have the guide. It's helpful to have the group.
Right.
The group's energy can hold you in that individual process. I'm fully on for a properly curated group.
It's immense.
And a group could be 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's one of the things I think that makes, I can speak to Hoffman because I'm in the room, but to see the group support each other and hold each other and hear that I'm not alone in this. And like, I think that's integral to the work.
Yeah, that's everything. Like I know for the groups that I'm doing, the connection is number 1 and all the technique and stuff of that's secondary.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Or at least in tandem, it's like, it's cohesion.
You ever heard of the VA? No. Aaron Salah turned me on to that. Oh. And he said in Samoan culture, the concept of Va. And Va is like the space between us, the relational space, the energetic space between us. So we have you here, me, and we have the Va. So they call it like Teo Le Va, which is like tending to the Va, tending to our relationship. And when the Va is tended to, we're good. When the Va is healthy, we're healthy.
I love that.
So in a group, what's happening is I'm constantly like tending to the Va.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Because when the Va is real healthy, that group is real healthy. Things move smooth.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard that explained so succinctly. And yeah, I heard it too, this like methods of listening. One, like, level 1 is like, I'm listening to myself as I talk to you. level 2 is I'm actually listening to you as I talk with you. But level 3 is I'm listening to like the relationship between us, the trust or whatever. So that I think is like a way of describing the va.
The va.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think that's natural. I believe that's more natural for people with like an ability like you have. Like, I don't have that natural ability. I think I have to like, I used,
Except you might fight it.
maybe, yeah. I had a whole long session with my therapist.
Because why would you not fight it if it's painful for you? Like, I can go into yours. I can feel what you're feeling on a good number of it because I'm not fighting it in myself. At least this moment.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
The moment I start fighting it in myself, I'm going to fight yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've just never seen myself with that ability, but I can feel energy in rooms and I can feel energy between people sometimes. So I don't know, but yeah.
Well, was there anything we missed that you wanted to cover?
You know what just came up for me right at the end, though? I would have loved to just chat with you about death, actually. I mean, you mentioned so much death around you, and I lost my brother, which was the hardest death experience I had. He had diabetic reaction. No, it's been almost 18 years now. But it was hard because diabetic reaction, you know, one day he's here, next day he's not.
What does that mean? He had sugar and then that was it or something?
So he likely took a shot, too much insulin, and then he went to bed. And then we know he seizured because his bed had blood on it. And then, you know, they can do the test. They know it was like a low blood sugar that killed him. He was living with a live-in girlfriend at the time. She was on a business trip. My brother will always fight his own, like he thought he always knew his blood sugar, so he wouldn't check a lot. This was pre like the automat, you know, I was in Japan at the time teaching English. I get a call. What was crazy about it is like, I remember like it was yesterday, the answering machine went on. It was one of those ones that spoke out loud. And my dad was like, Corey, your brother has died. I mean, just like kind of dropped it. Like, I mean, that's all that I remember. I'm sure there was other stuff. And it was a crazy experience. Evan, like, you know, I was in Japan. The universe sent some really weird signals. Like someone called me like right after that. I thought it was my office. It ended up being somebody different, but it ended up being somebody that I had done at language school in Sapporo like the summer before. Somehow she knew another guy that I worked with, contacted him. He contacted anyway, this whole thing comes, all of a sudden 3 people from my Japanese office, my bosses, 2 of whom I never even really saw, they were behind doors, came and sat Seiza style on their, you know, knees in my living room. I don't know how long they were there. I remember thinking like, man, get out of here. Like, I don't want you in my house right now. And it wasn't until later in reflection that I was like, wow, that was pretty amazing what they did. But I was just, I mean, it was raw for me. I never welcomed it. I fought it. And so my story is like at 3 years or so, I just like buried it. And I remember I'd have really adverse reactions. I'd like be in the middle of a party and just leave and walk out. And then I finally had a moment where I got really drunk and I was on this balcony of a hotel with a friend who had lost somebody, and we both just said everything we needed to say. And I realized how much anger was in me towards my brother for not taking better care of his diabetes. And that was the moment that it released, and I was then able to like process and like respond. And now I used to not be able to talk about him without crying, and now I can. And it's from that. And so in context of this whole conversation, when you were bringing forward surrender and welcome, and when you mentioned death earlier, I was like, that actually was true for me with death. Like I just welcomed it finally, and it took me 3 years to do that. I was curious how your experience was with your parents. And
I think maybe before I go there, like I feel the like the joint like love and sadness with this.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share a story about your brother that would give me context into who he was to you?
Yeah. So growing up, we always fought, but he was like my roll dog. Like we would do everything together. My older brother was kind of like older, and we were a year and 8 months apart. Micah is his name. Micah was just, I mean, it was just fun and hilarious, but I never felt like Micah supported, maybe believed in me, maybe. And Mike always did the right thing. Like, you know, he was the one who went into enterprise, got the job, bought the house. I was off in like Japan, you know, all over, right? I did the basketball journey. Then I went to Hawaii. Then I went to Japan. Then I was back in Hawaii. And I always felt like there's this movie that I use a lot, Legends of the Fall. You ever seen this movie? So it was kind of like I was living the lifestyle of Tristan. And in that movie, the kid who's doing all the right things, about to get married, he dies. I always use that movie as like an analogy for like my brother I should have died, not my brother. But the reason I'm telling you the story is that when we went into his house, I didn't even know this. My brother had this whole wall of all the photos I'd sent him from Hawaii. I'd send him like his name in Hawaiian letters. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, he had never really shared with me the depth, I think, that he actually like loved and like respected my journey and all this stuff. And so I had this like really like bittersweet moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, like my brother and I spent 3 days in Hana. This is the last time I saw him. And we had this amazing experience where like just exploring Hana, and we kind of connected there. But anyway, that's the story, is like he was like my best friend, but it was like hard as a kid. But then to find out that at the end was like just very meaningful for me. And I was like, I think it's what made it harder. I never even knew this about how his respect almost for me as the little brother, like I was kind of felt like it was judgmental.
So if you had the chance to give him one last message that he would actually hear, what would it be?
I mean, just I love you, and I forgive you, and I wish that you could have received unconditional love to the degree that you wouldn't have fought your condition. Yeah. And then I hope, I mean, I don't know what this next life offers. I vacillate between heaven to reincarnation to carbon, nothing. But I just hope wherever he is that he knows he was loved. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. It was nice to think about. You want to share about your parents? I mean, what's that been like for you to like?
Oh, my dad was sick he got sick in 2013. We were sitting out here. He's like, I'm kind of tired. He just came back from a trip. We're like, you should go to the doctor. He's like, I don't care. I don't want to go doctor. Whatever. And then the next day I went to visit him, and he was like, oh yeah, my feet are swollen. And he showed me his feet that looked like this Kleenex box. It looked like footballs.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what the hell? You better go to the doctor. He's like, nah, I'm going to go in a few weeks. And then my wife came and she showed him something from like WebMD or something. So obviously, the web internet freaked him out. He's like, oh, I'd have a heart attack. So he went, they found out, oh, you actually have leukemia. You have cancer. We don't even know how you're still alive, which started this whole thing. Like I moved to Seattle we moved in for about 2 years to get treatments. And then I was there probably about a little over a year, but going back and forth. My wife we just had our fourth child. My wife is doing a full-time PhD as well as teaching at the DOE and then running our businesses. So her body like broke down later. And then my dad had bouts going in and out. In 2023, his body just gave out and stopped eating. And then he passed from old age. And then my mom got sick a year later. She was dizzy. And then she did MRI. We found, oh my God, you have brain tumors. It was lung cancer that spread. So we couldn't really, there's not much you could do. We tried and didn't really work. So she passed away kind of soon after that, which was last year. But yeah, I mean, transitions are like, it's the hardest thing, right? I mean, the first one I thought, oh, this is brutal. I thought I was going to be super relieved when my dad passed away because he was, he was weak. He was suffering. He was not really, it's like, this sucks. But it was overwhelming grief that would come in waves.
Wow.
Right? And then my mom, we kind of knew already, but same kind of thing. So, yeah.
What would you say to them if you could talk to them now?
Well, I talk to them all the time because when you're cruising in my house, their ashes were right in front of you. I don't know if you saw that, but I don't want to freak you out. I talk to them almost every day.
What would you say to them that you thought they might not know about?
I think they my dad, the interesting thing I think with my dad is I basically saved my dad's life. And I was up there with him for so long. I mean, we would be in a small apartment together. It's, we were able to, I didn't think my dad liked me much before that. I think he was, I'm his son and so on. But honestly, if you had asked me, like, I don't really know if he likes me very much. But through that process, I realized that, yeah, my father loves me.
That's nice.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
But I talk to them kind of a lot. I mean, they basically live in the house still, which is kind of convenient actually. But
yeah, that's actually great, Evan.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Well, my brother, I hate to wrap this up,
Okay.
but I better.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to acknowledge you, everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming on, spending this time with me. Time went by really quick, and I know you're
Yeah.
changing lives. I'll see you this week again. And
Yes.
yeah, I just appreciate it.
Thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for what you're doing, man. And I'm always impressed with what you're bringing into this world. You always have a way to like bring it forward. So thank you for that.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.